All right, so we are going to get started. My name is Christopher Whitaker. I'm one of the Brigade program managers here at Code for America. We are joined at Code for America by Veronica Young, as well as Tom Dooner. We have some special guests for this workshop. Catherine Petit and Olivia from NNIP. And then we also have the team from Code for San Jose with us. So before we get started, some quick housekeeping notes. We will be recording this webinar. We are mostly going to go over the 2020 census, the basics. We're going to go over the roles from the brigade for the brigades to participate in the 2020 census, and give an example from the Code for San Jose's Census Kiosk project, and then conclude the workshop with some Q&A. Because this webinar is going to be well attended, we're muting everyone until the Q&A. So you'll notice that you cannot talk. Your system is not broken, that's us. If you are on our Slack, we're gonna have a Census 2020 channel. If you're not on our Slack, you can join by going to slack.codeforamerica.org. We will also be using community agreements for this webinar. We ask that people use active listening, assume good intentions. When we do get to Q&A, when you're first speaking, if you'll introduce yourself, your brigade, and your pronouns. We also want you to be aware of the space you're taking up, sort of ask, why am I talking? Why ain't I talking? Frame your comments and questions about where we might go from here, or how might we. And then if someone expresses excitement or support for something, it's okay if you don't share their enthusiasm, but it's not okay to try to ruin it because you don't feel the same way. So with that, we will get rolling. We also have a resource doc available for people. I posted it both in the Zoom webinar chat as well as the Brigade Slack. That's a list of resources that we've made available for people who are going to work on the census. So to tee it up, we wanted to get involved in the census because of how vital the census is, as well as all the things that the census will affect going forward. The census is what determines which states get how many representatives in Congress. It determines your state's share of federal funding. And so when people don't participate in the census, your districts lose out not only on your political power, but financial dollars to your area as well. This particular census seems, I guess to put it politely, a bit contentious because of some of the questions and proposed utilization of the census information, but that makes it a bigger challenge to get all of the hard to count communities. And it also means that the communities are going to need all the help they can get to ensure that everyone gets counted. So with that, I want to turn it over to Olivia from NNIP.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm here with my colleague, Catherine Petit, who's in Chicago right now. So I'll be handling the first half of this presentation, and she'll be here to answer any questions and cover the second half of this. But just to give a little bit of background on myself and where I'm coming from, as well as Kathy, my name's Olivia Arena. My pronouns are she, her, hers. and I work at the Urban Institute. I'm an analyst here. It's a nonprofit research organization in Washington, D.C., and I'm here I work on a team that coordinates the National Neighborhood Indicators Partnership. So we are a network of 32 different organizations in 32 different cities that help stakeholders like government agencies, foundations, nonprofits use neighborhood data to improve their communities, really champion the efforts that they find important. So here's a map of our NNIP partners. I encourage you to look up your partner on our website, reach out to see the work that they're doing, and bond over a mutual love of technology and data. So we have a 2020 Census Cross-Site project funded by the Annie E. Casey Foundation, and it has several goals, but I'm going to talk about them in a twofold way. So the first of which is to encourage local organizations with data analysis and technology skills to get involved in complete count work. So that's why we're here talking to you today. It's not only to facilitate peer exchange within our own NNIP network amongst our partner organizations, but also to reach out to different networks, to different types of groups, and spread the word on the importance of getting involved and getting involved early in the 2020 census. So part of that has been we've collected resources, and there's a slide at the end of this presentation with a link to our website with those resources, as well as a brief and a blog. We've coordinated different resources, pulled them together to offer examples of how you can use data to improve complete count strategies, how some of our partners have used data. We're going to talk through that in the second part of this webinar. But again, it's to encourage other organizations and then to pull examples of people who are doing this work successfully. So that's the work that is ongoing, and we continue to want examples of great work and to highlight that through our network. So a little bit about the census. Christopher did a great primer. So the goal of the census is to count every person only once, and in the right place. So the 2020 census happens every 10 years, and it's crucial to congressional representation as well as apportioned funding. So there are challenges to this census. Many of you may have heard the citizenship question was a contentious issue. Ultimately, the result is that it delayed organizing and mobilization and outreach. There was a lot of attention on the citizenship question, a lot of uncertainty around what was going to happen, what messaging would look like, what outreach could or couldn't be done, and how to package that. And so now it's really time to get in gear now that we have the ruling on the citizenship question. An additional new challenge, which might be exciting for everyone here in this audience today, is this will be the first census with an internet option. So ultimately, people responding to the census will have the opportunity to respond by mail, by phone, and also with a digital option. You could imagine that people with limited access, hard to count communities with limited internet access or comfort providing their information online, this could prove to be a challenge, which again is why we need all the help that we can get. So how does the census affect your community? Governments use these counts, like Christopher and I said, to apportion the number of representatives in Congress, to draw that congressional representation for state and local elections also. So it's actually the representation, your voice in government. There's also census data, which is input from many other data sources, the American Community Survey, these basics for how we understand who we are, where we allocate resources, where we concentrate maybe a new senior center, or where we understand young children or certain communities to be. All of this is the basis for how we see ourselves, and we only get one chance to do the census right, and it's every 10 years. So ultimately, we live with these data. And the last part, and again, getting at this, is it's for investment decisions as well as just our understanding of what our communities look like and where we need to put funding. The federal government also apportions funding over $800 billion a year. So these are some of the programs that funding is allocated on based on census numbers. And this is important not just because this is a massive amount of money for very important programs, but surveys have shown that this is the most persuasive argument to get people to participate. Like, look at your community. If you like your local Head Start program, if you feel like more people are in need of housing assistance, the highway transportation funds, Medicaid, CHIP, SNAP, and food benefits. All of this is portioned off the numbers in your community. So getting the count right is incredibly important, and using this argument when you're talking to local stakeholders, funders, sharing material is a great way to talk to your neighbor on a one-to-one basis and say, hey, these things are important for us. It's a way of, really grounding what you're asking someone to do and showing the importance. So it's incredibly important, but we know and we've heard that actually the census does have an undercount, and there are specific groups that are missed. So there is an undercount of people of color, and there is an undercount of young children, children under 5, and people with housing, unstable housing situations. So for example, people living in rental housing, people experiencing homelessness, student populations. So there are definitely groups that have been undercounted in the past, and there is a threat that there could be greater undercounts because of some of the elements of this census. It's just really important that we focus on hard to count communities, which could look different in each of your different brigade cities. Why is this the case? Because the census comes to your home, so they could be missing a housing unit altogether. It could be housing instability, like I said, or transients, language barriers, complex household relationships, or just a distrust or misunderstanding of the census. So if this has already been an undercount for many years and people are aware of it, what's happening? There's actually a lot of local activism going on. The census is, at the end of the day, part of there's a call for civic participation and mobilization around doing your civic duty, filling out your census. So local groups are already working to educate and connect, educating stakeholders, funders, local officials, business leaders about the importance of the census, spreading the word. Something we'll talk about later on is just talking about the census helps bring attention to the fact that this is coming in less than a year, and it's important to get the ball rolling now. So that's just adding a slide about the census, plugging it in your presentation. If you're showing figures from the American Community Survey, talking about the importance of, hey, these figures are based on, and the census is coming up, so let's start to talk about this. It's subtly bringing it up and spreading the word of the importance, as well as participating in presentations or census solutions workshops like we'll talk about. And then ultimately, it's a mobilization effort, so there are a lot of jobs for residents to get involved. This is something that you can mention if you're talking to someone about how to get involved in the census, is actually they can get a job administering the census, and it's a neighbor to neighbor type interaction. So people will see someone from their own community showing up at their door if they don't respond. So those are some of the 3 big buckets for how people are already plugging in, and something that Kathy will also reiterate is that don't feel like you have to go it alone, and actually don't go it alone. Plug into some of the local efforts that are already happening. So we need you. The brigades bring an important lens. So you contribute technology and data skills. You're aware of local priority issues in your communities, especially with the digital census. You can serve as a bridge or collaborator with this new internet response option to play a key role as someone who's familiar with digital and technology skills. You can also serve as a bridge, which I know brigades are used to doing, as a collaborator between key players in public and nonprofit sectors. So that's why it's really important that you get involved. And Kathy's going to talk a little bit more specifically about how.
Thanks, Livia. Can you hear me, Christopher? Nod? Oh, excellent.
Yes, we can.
I'm very excited to see so many people show up, and hopefully our enthusiasm for getting involved in the census will carry over to all of you. I would want to just say that there's a huge range of ways that you can get involved, that you can find the right way to plug in based on your, brigade's interests and composition and local context that I know you think about with all of the projects that you take on. So this will just be familiar territory for you of finding the right spot for you to plug in. Next. Excellent. So how do you start to find out what's happening locally? Who would be likely to already be involved? So there's civil rights and other advocacy groups, NAACP chapters, local Latino groups. There's state and local funders collaboratives, but most importantly, there are complete count committees. And if you move to the next slide, Olivia, I'll share that these are volunteer committees that are designated to organize the sort of local campaign to motivate the residents. So like we are putting out the call to you, these complete count committees have registered with the Census Bureau and can be based in local government, which might be your city or county or some combination, or maybe regional. There are state complete count committees, and there are also community complete count committees. And I just realized I will show you now me. So you could have more than one complete count committee in your community. And Christopher and his resource link, there's a great map, thank you, Census Bureau people on the phone, and registry of where those complete count committees are and the contact person. So that's definitely your sort of first, well, do your homework first, and then that would be your first stop to find out what's happening. So the first, once you have familiarized yourself with the basics of the census, and we have resources for that later at the end of the presentation, then you have chatted with your complete count committee to hear a little bit about what they're interested in. From there, the different kinds of projects you can take on. Our first category is to create and edit websites, which we know you do a lot more than this, but this particular skill set could really help. There's different kinds of websites. There's just more static ones, like to represent the committee, for example, or to keep track, for them to keep track of the various events and key information. There's data and mapping websites. So the Census Bureau has really great data APIs that highlight those hard to count, different kinds of hard to count indicators. And there are 2 or 3 different mapping systems. So you could either just create a website and just have like an iframe with the national mapping site sort of just centered on your community and zoomed into your community, or you could do something more fancy with the raw data if you want to build your own sort of custom mapping site like this. There could be maps of assets. So you'll hear later about San Jose's kiosks, where the public libraries are. As the first online census, we are concerned that people who are not comfortable, either who don't have a computer or broadband at home at all, or who are not comfortable using computers, will be dissuaded from using the census. So there's a big push to have public libraries get involved too, as comfortable places where people might go to ask for help. And they'll need to know where those are. And we also have some NNIP partners that have done visualizations or lookup tables about the federal resources at stake, sort of how many dollars are going to your county or your state that the census relies on, so that people can use those in your persuasive. We don't expect regular residents to be looking up those things, but the folks that are developing the messaging use those numbers. For example, you know, if you're talking to some child advocates, they would care how much Head Start, how many $millions of Head Start money is going to those folks, and having a web page to look that up easily would be a really big help to them. Next. So here's an example of a website that some students in Berkeley put together on hard to count metrics and how the states compared, and you can. We have links to both in our brief and our blog, and we can share on Slack really examples of all these different types of websites that our partners and others have put together. So there's lots of places to really generate ideas for yourself. All right, applying user-centered design. So the Census Bureau has this really great toolkit that they've done for census solutions workshops. And these are really like structured problem solving events to bring together diverse perspectives to just come up with new ways to either message or do the outreach, particularly to hard to count communities. And their toolkit takes you from like soup to nuts about how to run one of these. They're most effective, obviously, in partnership with the Complete Count Committee or with an advocacy group who can get the right people in the room for whatever your particular goal is, whether it's young kids or reaching immigrants. But the mechanics of it are really well laid out. And these are photos from our NNIP partner in Providence who attended one and found it really helpful. We held one of these at a pilot of them at the NNIP meeting too, and people really enjoyed it, and it just brings up new creative ideas. And that link will also be on the resource page. All right, so one easy lift that I hope that all of you will do is to just start talking about the census. Share notes about it at your regular CFA meetings. We often focus on more, like low-income populations or families with young kids, but actually young, like 18 to 22-year-olds who are often moving a lot are also people that are missed a lot. So if you have partners in government agencies or nonprofits, if you have a social media account, you can add your voice to amplify how important the census is, which I know is not like not a technical lift, but the more we need all of us to really get involved at this level to make sure that our communities get counted. The last bucket of examples is about the more supporting technology services. So a lot of the folks working on digital inclusion are thinking about trainings, like helping to develop worksheets or fact sheets about how to help people get through the census form, or combining it with other digital literacy sessions, camps, workshops, or classes that you could get involved in. And then the last one that we will turn it over to your friends and peers at San Jose is helping with digital kiosks. So some cities are establishing standalone workstations or kiosks so that people can go and fill out their census forms. So we are really excited to learn from Christopher about the great work going on in San Jose, and wanted to give them a chance to have them share their story and where they are. So I think that Christopher is going to take over the slides, and San Jose is going to unmute themselves as a reminder. And then I can come back and with a couple extra slides and answer questions.
Awesome. Can y'all see the slide deck? Awesome. All right, so I will now turn it over to Code for San Jose.
Wait, can you see it? I can't see it yet. If others can see it, then that's great. I see Olivia still.
We can see our slides.
Oh, excellent. Then good.
I think that was Olivia's.
Oh, is it? Can you go ahead to the next slide, Christopher? Oh, that is not our slides.
Yeah, I don't think.
We have the slides. We have the. We have,
Do you have them
on our phone, so we can speak from them if you can't get them on the screen. And we can just send them along later. We can't hear Christopher.
All right, just a second.
Or if you want to send them to me, I can pull them up. I didn't get them in the email.
Well, why don't I start talking a little bit about the project? And my name is Josie Rodriguez, and I'm with the City of San Jose, and I'm the 2020 Census Project Manager. And I worked on the 2010 census, and obviously that was a different kind of still census work, but a little bit different than the level of work that we're having to do this time around to educate and motivate our residents to take part in the census. And so Catherine touched on it that for this time around, the census is going to be online. That's the primary push that the Census Bureau is trying to get people to use as a method for completing the census. One is as part of a budget savings strategy, and also just to streamline and improve data collection that way. So of course, with that, creates different sets of challenges, especially in a community as diverse as City of San Jose, where not everybody may have access to computers or access to internet. And so in kind of looking at those challenges and trying to figure out how to overcome some of those, we started talking internally about using our library branches in our community centers, which are well attended here in San Jose, and our community trusts the staff and those two departments in the community. So we wanted to kind of build on that. And so that's where the idea came of having Census Kiosk, but really just dedicated dedicated city computers at these different locations throughout the city, where people could just drop in, and we won't be requiring them to have a library card to be able to use the computers at the library like the other computers, so that to facilitate that usage. And so we didn't want to just send them to the census website to complete the census, knowing that, there's going to be some individuals who are probably going to need a couple of visits or a couple of conversations to convince them to complete the census. So we started thinking, well, what can we do? And that's where the idea came about, to create a user interface, a page that would be displayed on all the computers that would provide them with different paths on how to get more information about the census, and if they're ready for completing the census, providing them with a secure direct link to the online census survey. So in that kind of user interface, we kind of divided it in a couple of buckets. One is that if an individual is ready to complete the census, they could click on the button that just takes them directly to the U.S. Census Bureau website, and they can go ahead and complete the census. But if they have questions, we want to provide them with the opportunity to be able to go to one of the pages where there's frequently asked questions and concerns. And we want to provide more than just, the typical answers that you probably will find on the Census Bureau website, which is great. It provides a lot of information there. But we want to go a step beyond and customize the information and connect the dots for our residents living in San Jose. What does that census data mean for San Jose? How does it impact a resident living in San Jose? And so to that end, we're going to be using we're going to use information that is somewhat San Jose specific. We're going to be using graphics and pictures to be able to create that community sense when they go to our website. We also want to provide them with a copy of the sample survey ahead of time and define for them what the questions mean and why they're asking those questions. Because I think there's going to be a lot of questions about the questions. Now that the citizenship question is not on the survey, that helps out a lot. But there's going to be questions around race and ethnicity. Why are you collecting both? Why do you need my age? Why do you need all that stuff? So we're trying to provide them with that information ahead of time. And then the other thing that we want to do is provide them with an avenue to get involved. So there is a get involved or request more information page that we've developed, and we're working on that right now, so that people can either request outreach materials. If they want a presentation, they can request a presentation, or they can just if they want to work for the Census Bureau right now, this is one of the big things that they're pushing for, is trying to recruit census workers. So those are kind of the avenues that we're providing them with. Again, we're trying to bring the information to them in a way that is San Jose specific, that uses San Jose language. Every community is very diverse, and also is going to be available in different languages. Spanish and Vietnamese are our two primary languages here in San Jose. And I'll turn it over to Anathea for the more technical side.
Okay. So if you want to flip to our next slide. I'm Anathea Lowland. I'm the project lead for Code for San Jose Census 2020 project. We got involved when Vilcia came to us and presented. She gave us a bunch of really useful background information so that everyone who worked on the project could get themselves up to speed really quickly on why we were doing this and what's important. And we all kind of came together and started doing interface ideas right away, and looking at what the requirements are, including multilingual design and accessible design. So we put together a brigade, and it's, as all of these things are, it's constantly changing. We're getting new people in every meeting, just about, to give us input on our web development, on our user designs, and actually starting to do the code. Our deliverable is a website that will be able to be accessed from these kiosk computers. And the important thing is that although we're developing it, in the end, we think the city of San Jose will probably actually own the implementation. So we're sort of, an intermediate step to sort of accelerate the process for city of San Jose.
And I just wanted to highlight too that while the Brigade, who's an amazing team, is working on this, internally on my end, I'm working on with our departments and our staff to make sure that we're meeting all their needs and addressing all their concerns and questions. So it is kind of it is a very time-intensive project, in the sense that you're multitasking. So you're trying, because we don't have that much time. We have to, develop this, be able to test it with selected people, and then be able to implement it, and also create the branding and marketing around the Census Kiosk. So, in thinking if this is something that you may want to be doing, just keep that in mind, that, internally, government work tends to take some time for review and approval process. And so we're kind of working on a very, very rapid timeline for that.
And if you want to jump to our next slide, I would say that this is actually my first project that I'm leading for Code for San Jose. So I'm learning what the Brigade can do. And I think it's really exciting to see a bunch of locals who are really focused on what people in this area are interested in, and what appeals to San Jose citizens and San Jose youth especially. So people are very passionate because they know it's affecting us, and I think we bring that energy to the project. Being able to have a lot of people coming in and out is really a benefit, because we're getting a lot of different perspectives every time we iterate a design. We're getting more information. And our Brigade members are, they're technical people, they're very knowledgeable, so they're able to do things like, that wireframe was just, someone just, sketched that out in just a week, and, we were able to get going. So I think the fact that we're a team and not a contractor or a vendor lets us act with a little more agility and experiment a little bit more, and those are some really valuable things that we can bring to a project like this for the city. But as Vilcia mentioned, there are some challenges, and I guess that's kind of our last slide, is that tight timeline is really, really hard to work with. If you're planning to get involved in something like building a full website, you're going to want to prepare to be aggressive if you're just starting right now. The government, especially if you're working with the government, it is going to take time to have all those approvals go through. But you don't have to work with government if your timeline is going to be too tight to do that. You might consider working with a nonprofit or one of those other community organizations instead, and just interacting with your government representatives to get their input without necessarily having to have their approval. And I think one thing that we're always aware of is that civic hacking volunteers have limited time. So it's been really valuable to us to always come to every meeting prepared to sort of re-pitch the project and bring new people in so that we're always getting that energy and that extra set of hands that we need to keep this in motion. Is there anything else that I think we want to share?
No, I think that's really good. Yeah.
Great. That's a real life example that both the great parts and the hard parts. So we would just wanted to end with this census timeline. So this is just that some, your complete count committee, it depends on how organized they were about how long it's been, how long they've been up and running. So just be prepared for that. And the national advertising campaign, you'll start to see things in January as they sort of look to motivate people. The mailing goes out in March, and then April 1st is Census Day. So it's mailed on a rolling basis. And then in May through July, they spend time doing response follow-up efforts for the ultimate goal of publishing those state population totals. And then data will roll out after that into 2021. So just to get you set up with that. And then I think you can go to the next one, Christopher. Yeah, so I think we just had discussion questions for you, and we're happy to answer questions. And there's census folks on the phone too about what makes sense for your brigade. And we'd love to see the Slack channel stay alive and a way for you guys to share that way. We're also looking as part of our project on for other good examples of data and tech work being done locally. So we'd love to highlight your work. If you can share, we'll share Olivia's and my contact information at the end. And then there's a few extra slides afterwards that you can look into with resources and links, and Christopher's pulled stuff together. So there's tons of raw material to work with once you figure out where you want to fit in.
Awesome. So thank you so much to NNIP and Code for San Jose. At this time, and I'll put the link in the chat, the ask for brigades are to nominate one census liaison if your brigade is interested in working on census issue. That link will take you to a spreadsheet that has all of the complete count committee members and their point of contact. So we'd love for brigades to reach out to their complete count committees to see how they might be able to work together. So with that, we will now move on to Q&A. So I will stop the screen share. And our first question is from Janet, who's asking for Anthea, will the top level slide on the screensaver of all of the, what will be the top level slide on the screensaver of all library computers? The one that links either to the census itself or to the website?
So the landing page for the census kiosks, it won't be every single library computer, is going to be our landing page, but there's going to be a very prominent button directly to the census. It's going to be the most important element on every single screen in that web page. So it's not a direct link to the census. We're sort of passing people through our intermediate landing page.
Janet, does that answer your question? All right, I'm assuming so. So Janet's asking, is this a separate computer at the library, or are all of them going to be set up with this?
No, these are all the computers at the library and community centers. However, we will be dedicating two maybe more computers at the library branches for census only. So those are going to be given priority for people coming in to complete the census. And those computers, as I mentioned before, you won't need to have a library card to be able to use them. So that's one way to facilitate, that the visitors through both places.
Great. Other questions? I know that because we have the microphones muted, people might be typing, so we'll give it a few minutes for people to type in their questions. And if we have no questions, we'll bring this to a close.
I'm also about to put our contact information. Here we go. You have more questions in the chat, just with links.
Sure. So let me just a second.
Christopher, are you able to unmute Lorena to give the plug?
Yep. All right, Lorena, you should be able to talk now. Do you want to do a plug for the Opportunity Project?
I can probably give a rougher one, but we can follow up with a link to the.
I don't know if you can hear me. This is Lorena.
Yes.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. This is Lorena Molina. I'm the Director of Operations with the Census Open Innovation Labs, which is a tech hub within the Census Bureau. And we essentially, on Tech Accelerator, we have two flag programs in the Google Documents actions under the researching as call to actions. We have two Excel connects to these nonprofit.
Lorena,
For
can you hear me? You're breaking up a bit. I'm gonna promote Mara. All right, Mara, you should be able to talk now.
Looks like she's still muted.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, Lorena's in Puerto Rico, which may explain the technical difficulties at the moment. But hi, everyone. I'm Mara Abrams. I'm the founder and co-director of the Census Open Innovation Labs. And what Lorena was trying to say is that the Opportunity Project is a sort of tech accelerator where government and organizations and tech teams collaborate to develop digital products that solve problems for the public using federal open data. So we work across federal agencies, for example, working with HUD on affordable housing, or with DOL on helping veterans find job opportunities using AI. This time around, we're launching a sprint that is actually directly connected to the Census Bureau. So we are developing this program, or the next sprint will be focused on tech solutions to challenges within the scope of 2020. So basically, it'll be around enumerator recruitment, reaching hard to count communities broadly, and bridging the digital divide and increasing digital literacy. And so we can send you all more information about the sprint. There's lots of benefits to joining. You'll definitely, we have a whole process where there's different milestones, and we kind of guide you through a 12-week process. And there's, each milestone is like one is around user research, and another will be a data dive. So we have data experts that to help you navigate different data sets that you can use. And at the end, there's a big demo day at the Census Bureau headquarters. it's open press. There's hundreds of people that come out from across federal agencies as well as in the private sector and elsewhere. And it's a really great way to get recognition for a tech tool that you might want to prototype. So if you have any further questions, feel free to email myself or Lorena, and we can provide a lot more information to you. And just a quick plug, the website is opportunity.census.gov, but we have a lot more detailed information about this particular sprint if you would like to request that.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So Julie Kramer has two questions. The first is for Code for San Jose. Can you share the marketing materials that you are using to get people into the libraries and community centers?
We haven't developed that yet, but I have to say that our library department is fabulous with marketing materials. They actually have won awards. So we've already started working with them, and we're in the process of trying to figure out what that branding and marketing is going to look like. We're also working with the Complete Count Committee from the county. They've also are big partners of ours. So it's going to be a very collective effort so that there's a uniform message throughout the county, because I think that's what's going to be very important. But we're more than happy to share our marketing materials and everything once they've been developed.
Awesome. And we'll put that on our resource page as well. The second question is, how can we reach hard-to-reach communities and get them into libraries and community centers, i.e. young children, college students, immigrants, non-English speakers, people experiencing homelessness? I think we'll throw that one to NNIP.
Sure, I can start, and then Olivia can reach in. I think on the college student side, many universities have their own plans about how to reach people. And for example, I think the dorms are, obviously more structured, but Olivia herself was surprised that one person was answering for her whole group home. So the basics of that are good to get out to college students. I think I have less examples, less familiarity with reaching the farm workers and non-English speakers, but I think going through community centers in neighborhoods, partnering, I think, I'm trying to remember, it was in one of the Texas cities where they were partnering with one of the large mosques in the city to work with that. So the faith-based community is a place to connect with. And I think on the older adults, there's the senior centers or the homelessness on the shelters. So I would go through the organizational start. The Complete Count Committee likely has a plan for these groups and representatives from those community groups on there. And San Jose, you can speak up if that's true. But if not, then going through organizations that already have relationships with these folks are the best way to go. But once the Census Bureau on their Census Partners page, which would be great if you'd sign up for that, have also lots of flyers and other more generic messaging. It'll be most effective if it's localized like San Jose is, but there's a lot of base foundation materials to start from. Olivia, do you have other things to add?
Yeah, I think just highlighting that they're going through, reaching people where they're at and using trusted messengers. Like, for example, at NNIP meetings, part of our peer exchange has talked about this, and organizations have said faith communities are great ways to reach people. For young children, the school system, so places where they have trusted advisors versus a new organization trying to figure that out. And I think that's some of the importance of just integrating census materials into the way that you're already promoting, the way you're already talking about projects, and almost anywhere you go, just highlighting that the census is coming up. It's not the only thing in 2020, but there's an important, it's important to focus attention also on that complete count. So I think that just going through avenues that are already tried and true. Yeah, I'm looking at Nextdoor as in the comments. But yeah, using different channels to promote information.
I think I can, I think they're answer Julie's questions I see from the Q&A too, Christopher. There are places with multiple complete count committees. I don't know the exact numbers. I would say if you want to reach out to the ones, there may be one that's either more open to working with you or has a concrete idea, or one that's more organized than another, that you can more easily plug into, because I think you heard from San Jose that it's a lot of work on the other end too. So that might be a piece. I would not recommend that you, as a volunteer group, I would not expect it would make sense for you to start your own complete count committee. That's a big responsibility and lift. I don't know, the census folks can chime in, but I think the infrastructure should be, instead, I would encourage you as a resident of wherever you live to call your mayor's office or your county executive's office and tell them, how important it is to start one, and to let them do the heavy lifting of the, civic organizational infrastructure, and to find, the right place for your brigade.
Mara, do you want to do any follow-up to that, or is...
Did I answer it right, Mara and Lorena?
Yes.
Lorena, we're still having trouble trying to hear you.
I think Mara's unmuted.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah. Did I give the right answer?
Yeah, that was great. That was great. And if you have any further questions, let me know.
The last thing I'll say is that I think our last slide in here has some of those first steps, links to first steps, like signing up to be a census partner, as well as other preliminary signups to get you information. So it's a plug for keeping these materials on your radar.
Yeah, I think our list, Christopher, I don't think I carefully cross-referenced, but we have a list with a lot of the sort of data and tech specific links that I'll make sure are on your resource list too, if they have places to start. There's also the hard to count map from the CUNY system. They have been collecting websites and mapping websites, so they have a long list of examples too.
Awesome. Other questions? So we have about 4 minutes left if there are any other questions. Otherwise, we will close this out. Going once.
Going once.
Going twice. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for everybody for joining in on this call. As a reminder, if you are in our Brigade channel, we've posted the link to the not only the census resource page, but also a spreadsheet to where you can sign your brigade up to participate. We're asking each brigade to name one person to be a liaison to the census. That spreadsheet also has what should be your local complete count committee's point of contact. We are updating that spreadsheet for the complete count committees as we get new information. So if you don't see your complete count committee there, don't worry. We are updating those slides.
I have one last thing too, Christopher.
Yeah.
I should have said, some of the complete count committees, as I mentioned, are less organized than others. So it might be good for, you might need to do some suggesting about how you can plug in and help, because we've been promoting how to use data and technology to improve strategies and outreaches, but it's new idea to some people. So just there may need to be you might need to do some educating of them on about what's happening around the country and other ideas. So if you just ask them what they need, just don't be shocked if they don't know how to answer on the first try.
Are there any other last-minute questions? So Lorena is going to post all the resources and opportunity project information on how to get involved in the Brigade Slack. We will also do some follow-up as well. If you want more like detailed nitty-gritty information as we continue on with the census, sign up for the spreadsheet and we will email you some further updates. And with that, we will close this out. We should have the recording of this webinar sometime tomorrow afternoon. And thanks so much, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Christopher. This was great.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.